Welcome back to AC Spencer Trade. So the video today is all about the mental state of a trader. Now, to generate a good mental state, there are a few things which you have to have in order first to generate a clear trading mind. You can't be a complete beginner, come into the market and expect to have a really good trading mind, right? Because there's quite a few things which are missing. One, you've spent no time in the market, so your emotions are just going to be running absolutely wild. Every time you enter into a position, it's going to feel like you're going to the roulette table and sticking it all on black, because that's essentially what you're doing, right? You've got no education, you've never done this before, so the emotions are going to be high. You're never going to avoid that. Now, the second thing which you need is a good strategy, okay? And obviously this is where the majority of your time in the first 12 months of trading are going to be spent. You're going to be learning the technical analysis, you're going to be learning the fundamentals, and then from there, that's when you're going to start building your strategy. Now, you can't possibly have a good mental state trading without a good strategy. Right, because you don't know how you're going to perform. That's going to leave you in a really stressful situation. So until you've got this, you don't even want to be thinking about anything else. All of your work solely needs to be going into your strategy. So with generating a good strategy, you need fundamentals and you need technical analysis, okay? Without these two things, you're screwed before you even get started. So it's very important that you have a very good understanding of technical analysis and fundamentals before you start worrying about your mental state, and before you even start worrying about your strategy. If you don't know what you're looking for, how can you generate a good strategy and how can you have a good mental state, right? You physically can't. And this is something which I really struggled with in my early days of trading, because everyone talks online about how it's like 90% mentality, 10% actually trading. And that's true, but only once you've got a strategy which you know works, okay? So to generate a good strategy, you have to include both of these together, and then you've got to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours backtesting, okay? I mean hours. You want really 2 to 3 years worth of data to prove that you've got a real edge in the markets, right? If I asked you a question, would you rather have a strategy that works for 3 months or one that works for 3 years? Which one are you going to choose? Of course, you're going to choose the one which goes for 3 years, right? So the longer you test it for, the bigger your data pool is, and the more confidence you're going to have in that strategy, which leads to a clearer mental state, right? Because now you've got faith in the strategy, and that gives you what you need to start generating a good mental state as a trader. If you've got a strategy with a horrible win rate that you do like 1 to 30 risk to reward ratio, you trying to get a good mental state doing that strategy is going to be much harder than Joe from Bloomberg, who is trading a 1-to-1 strategy with an 80% win rate, okay? It's just very simple. So if your mental state is not very good and you know that you struggle with this, then you want to be making your strategy to suit yourself, not to try and suit what you think is going to generate a massive P&L. Because I can promise you now, if you generate a 1 to 30 risk to reward trade, you're going to struggle with discipline. Okay, because your system's not going to fire very often. You're going to be losing 80% plus of your trades, and then the ones that you do win, you're going to feel like Jesus has just come down from Nazareth and that you're the best thing in the world, right? Because you've just hit this 1 to 30 trade, but you've just lost the previous 20 trades prior. So that leads me on to discipline. Now, discipline is arguably the most easy and most difficult part of trading at the same time, right? Because all discipline is telling yourself, I'm going to do this today, and actually doing it, right? Easier said than done. This is what most people struggle with, and it's something that I struggled with for a while, which is why I want to dive into this today. So the best way to dial in your discipline is outside of the charts. If you've got a messy life and you go drinking 4 times a week, you play video games all the time, you fail to do the really basic things, right? You leave your dishes sat in the sink for 24 hours before you clean them up. You're just a horrible person, right? You need to start with your discipline outside of the charts, and then discipline inside of the charts becomes very easy from there. So you need to start with small goals, and then with those small goals, you can build those up. And then from there, you can take that discipline into the charts. So my recommendations for becoming good with discipline, number one is the gym, okay? This is the easiest thing to do. You don't have to go to a fancy gym. You can simply do it at home. Just create a workout, right? Just do 100 push-ups a day. You can do 100 sit-ups a day. And start with that and then build on it, okay? And if you are the guy with your dishes sat in the dishwasher for 24 hours, that's the first thing you need to sort out because it's disgusting, right? Then use this to go into the chart. So now at this point, you've already got your strategy, yeah? Now we need to move on to discipline. Now, once you've got a good strategy and you start to implement discipline, that is when you will start to see profits, okay? Because that's the only thing in between. Strategy, discipline, profit. Okay, that is it. Now, what does discipline look like? Discipline is following rules, okay? You set these rules based on your strategy. You've got the data telling you that these rules are what you need to do, and you still fail to follow the rules. I see this so much. People think that they're better than their strategy. Well, what was the point in doing that 300 hours of backtesting if now you're going to fail at the discipline part? Right? Completely fucking useless. So following the rules is number one, okay? You simply cannot avoid that. Number two is a really simple one, and that's journaling, right? This takes no more than 15 minutes a day. Couple screenshots of the trades that you've taken or the trades that you haven't taken if you missed an opportunity or whether the setup just wasn't there, and just write why. Why did you take the trade? How much did you risk? How many pips was your stop loss or points was your stop loss? What was your risk to reward ratio? What were the entry criteria? If you've got two different playbooks, which one did you use, right? Don't overcomplicate journaling. You don't need to write a whole A4 sheet of paper of text. You can do an A4 sheet of paper and half of it can be full of pictures, right? Just a 1 minute, a 5 minute and an hourly chart, depending on the strategy that you're working with from your strategy that you've already made, right? So journaling. So if you're now going to the gym, you're following your rules and you're journaling, that's it. That's discipline. You don't need to do any more than that, okay? Now, you can go further than this and you can generate a really nice daily structure, and I recommend you do that. But first of all, especially if you're still working a job, these three things, that's all discipline requires. And then if you can do these three things, it leads to profit, right? Not all the time. Sometimes your strategy is not going to work as well in live testing as it does when you're back testing. But this is where you're making tweaks to your strategy, okay? Because no strategy is perfect. No strategy's got a 100% win rate, and it certainly is not. The strategy that you use in back testing is not going to be the one that you're using in 12 months' time. It's going to be a refinement of that, okay? So the way that I structure going from strategy to discipline to profit is create the strategy, demo, discipline, demo, profit, demo, refine, tweak, live markets, and then you generate real income, okay? So don't try and skip past steps because this is going to kill your discipline. If you go straight from strategy to trying to make profits, you're going to lose money. This is where discipline comes in, right? Because you need to eliminate as many issues as possible with fake money before you start going into generating real profits with real money. And this is going to help with your emotions because now you know that it's profitable in demo. So as long as you follow these good old rules, it's going to be profitable on a live market, right? And it's just completely eliminates any emotion whatsoever. I get into a trade now and my heart rate drops, to be honest, because I really don't care whether it wins or loses. I just follow my rules, I journal, and then I get my outcome, win or lose. It doesn't make a difference to me because I know from the back testing and from my live testing that it's going to be profitable over a long period of time. It's the law of large numbers, right? Individual trades don't matter. Individual weeks don't matter, months start to matter, years are what you're really focusing on. So stop being so focused on, I need to make each day profitable. Who cares? You don't need to make every day profitable. It's not true. It's just nonsense. You see this shit online, but it's not real. We all have losing days. I lose 60% of my days, right? And I'm still very, very profitable. But 60% of my days is still losers, or, well, I class losers and break-evens together, right? So you don't need to have this Hail Mary strategy that's going to generate you ridiculous profits. You need to have a strategy, you need to have discipline, and the profits are the byproduct of that. So a good mental trading state all starts in the strategy. So when they say 90% mental, 10% strategy, it's true, but you have to have the good strategy first in order to create the discipline, in order to create the profits. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit different, right? Going over a bit more of the emotional side of things, but this is the 3-step process which you absolutely need to follow. So please like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below of what you would like the next video to be, and I'll see you in the next one.